So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. What a pleasure to be here speaking to Keiser University students, faculty, administration, alumni, and patrons. And before I go any further, a special shout out to Malachi Knowles. Malachi, I thought you were going to be here, man. I thought I would have the pleasure of bumping elbows with you, but I see you're doing it virtually, which is fine. But Malachi, as he told you, his story has broken so many barriers and has been a model for so many. And it's certainly an honor to follow him in this program. It is truly a great pleasure to be with you this afternoon, even if we are apart and virtual. It is indeed unprecedented times. Special thanks to Flagship Campus President Gary Blanc and then Hawk Talk Program Director Glenn Swift for the invitation to be with you this afternoon. As mayor of the great city of West Palm Beach, please know that we are happy, honored, and proud to have Keiser University in our city, helping to develop the next generation of our city's workforce and perhaps our future city leaders. Thank you for all that you do in working with this next generation. So the theme for today's event is Black History Month. Obviously, we are all familiar with Black History Month, and I'm sure we can cite our favorite Black characters, whether it's Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Muhammad Ali, or Harriet Tubman, and the list goes on and on. But how many of us know the history of Black History Month celebration? I'd like to kind of take you through that history because I believe that it is as relevant today as it was then. The father of Black History Month is a gentleman that was named Carter Godwin Woodson. Carter G. Woodson was a famous Black historian, the son of former slaves. Dr. Woodson was as passionate about history as a man could be. In fact, it was said that he was a strange man, and he was identified as being strange because of his passion for history, particularly the history of Black folks in this country. It was said that that history was his only passion. Dr. Woodson was also the second African American to receive his PhD from my alma mater, Harvard University, achieving that in 1912. Just a parenthetical note, the first African American to receive their PhD from Harvard was a very renowned author, WPB Du Bois. Many of you have probably heard of him or read some of his works. In any event, Dr. Woodson wanted to pass along his love, his passion for history, Black history, to school children. So in 1926, at the age of 41 years, Dr. Woodson started Negro History Week. He chose the second week of February because the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass were both in that week. Now, Dr. Woodson had two goals in mind when he established Negro History Week. First, he wanted to use history to prove to white America that African Americans, or Negroes in the jargon of the day, had played an important role in building this country and therefore deserved to be treated equally to white persons. Second, he wanted to increase the visibility of Black life and Black history, particularly the positive elements of Black culture. Now keep in mind in 1926 that access to information about Black culture and Black life was limited to basically word of mouth. There certainly wasn't the internet or television, and very few newspapers, books, and universities paid much attention to the Black community. His overarching desire, however, was to make sure that the Black race was preserved in this country. In a 1926 article, Dr. Woodson stated that, and I quote, "If a race has no history, it has no worthwhile tradition. It becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated." The American Indian left no continuous record. He did not appreciate the value of tradition, and where is he today? The Hebrew keenly appreciated the value of tradition, as is attested by the Bible itself. In spite of worldwide persecution, therefore, he is a great factor in our civilization. So Dr. Woodson did not want the black race to go down in the annals of history similar to those of Native Americans. Now, Black History Month was initially conceived by black educators and some black students at Kent State University in 1969. The first Black History Month celebration was held at Kent State from January 2nd to February 28th, 1970. And then Black History Month was officially recognized by President Gerald Ford in 1976 during the celebration of America's bicentennial. So that's a little bit of history, but we're going to come back to that later on in this address. So I'm here today as a piece of the history of African Americans in West Palm Beach. Although West Palm Beach is 125 years old, never in its history has a black person sat as the city's chief executive officer, and I have that distinct honor. You know, I love coming to speak at college campuses, such as Keiser University's flagship campus. As I drove through the campus today, walked into the auditorium, for one brief moment, I harkened back to my own college days and was reminded that so much has changed. Well, first of all, the difference between Harvard and Keiser is that there's no snow here, thank God. But yes, lots has changed since I was in college, which was a long time ago. But you know what? Lots have changed just in this last year. COVID-19 has changed how we live, work, and go to school. And if you or your loved ones have been personally impacted by COVID-19, please know that you're in my thoughts. And I applaud each and every one of you for continuing your studies during these very challenging times. But what is the similarity between Harvard and Keiser is that college campuses are very special places. You know, there are laboratories where boys and girls enter as wide-eyed freshmen and leave a few years later draped in graduation robes as men and women ready to change the world. College students represent so much hope for our future. College students bring new energy to ongoing societal concerns, community concerns, and communities in general. College students offer a fresh perspective on things, which is so often needed. So today in delivering remarks, I am pleased to share with you some of the great progress that we're making in the great city of West Palm Beach, and yes, I am biased. The changes that we are seeing and the hope that I have for our city's future, and hopefully that will be part of your future as well. I also want to share with you a very special role that each of you can play in developing our city's future. But first, let me share just a little bit of my story. I was born, as someone alluded to in my introduction, in Wichita, Kansas, to a teenage single mother. Mama was a smart woman. She actually graduated high school at 16 years old in a small town in Oklahoma called Cushing, Oklahoma, and came to Wichita, to the big city, to start college. So she started college by the time she was 17, but she met my father, who was her exact opposite. My father was a high school dropout, a pool hustler. If you looked up bad boy in the dictionary, there's a picture of my dad. And so nature took its course, and this sweet little country girl, my mother, and this bad boy from the big city got together and created me. But the one thing Mama instilled in me was a strong work ethic and a hunger, a desire to do well in school. I often tell the story that if I brought home a B, I had to have a good explanation to Mama. And generally, if you know mothers, there wasn't a good enough explanation, so I had to go back and hit the books even harder. So she definitely instilled that desire to excel in school. But that was only the start. As you know, it always takes a spark to ignite a fire. So the spark in my life was a counselor in my high school. I was probably in my sophomore year of high school, and a counselor by the name of Greg Herndon approached me. But Greg Herndon was a graduate student. He was in college at Kansas State University. He was at my high school, Wichita High School East, to work on his master's, and we were part of his practicum. So he pulled me to the side one day and he said, "Keith, I've seen your record, and tell me, what do you think about going to college?" And I looked at him, shrugged my shoulders, and I said, "Mr. Herndon, I don't know." I said, "All I want to do is get out of the state of Kansas." Which was true. I knew I wanted to go to college, but I had no broader vision or dream than just getting out of Kansas. I had what I call the opposite of the Dorothy syndrome. If anyone in here has ever watched The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy couldn't wait to get back to Kansas. I couldn't wait to get out of Kansas. But I digress. So Mr. Herndon, he said, "Well, have you thought about the Ivy Leagues?" I said, "Ivy what?" I literally did not know what an Ivy League school was. So he says, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Brown. I said, "Man, I don't know anything about that." So he said, "Well, come to my office after school today, and we are going to write a letter to these colleges and get application materials." And we did. So the rest is history. I applied to Harvard College, and I was fortunate enough to get in. But I tell that story, particularly when I talk to young people, because had he not spoken into my life, or had he not been the spark in my life, chances are I would not be here talking to you today. So he helped me expand my vision, to learn to dream bigger. So I always promised myself, if I had the opportunity to realize these dreams, and I've been very fortunate, I would do everything I could to give back to my community. I truly thought that was my obligation as an occupant of this earth. Plus, Mom always reminded me of that scripture in Luke 12:48. "For everyone to whom much is given, of him much shall be required." So after graduating from Harvard and Harvard Law School, I went on to become a lawyer here in West Palm Beach, representing businesses both big and small. And after living in West Palm Beach for 25 plus years, I took my community involvement to a whole different level and ran for city commission, and was fortunate enough to serve 4 terms. And then 2 years ago, I successfully ran for mayor and became the first African-American strong mayor in West Palm Beach's history. So as I mentioned earlier, being a strong mayor means that you're a CEO directing the day-to-day operations of this corporate structure. In West Palm Beach, that involves leading 1,700 city employees and overseeing all operations, including public utilities, parks and recreation, public safety, including police and fire, and so much more. The combined budgets of the city, over $500 million, over $500 million. So in my opinion, West Palm Beach is indeed the best city in the world. There are about 110,000 residents in West Palm Beach. And I love the city because it has something for everyone. From our thriving downtown along the waterfront, replete with cultural attractions, shopping destinations and nightlife, to our western communities, which house Grassy Waters Preserve, a pristine remnant of the Everglades, which is also the source of our drinking water, to our diverse neighborhoods in the north and south ends. There's so much to do or experience in our city. The financial services, healthcare, education, real estate, hospitality, and cultural sectors all help drive the economy of West Palm Beach. And West Palm Beach serves as our region's economic driver. West Palm Beach is the capital city of Palm Beach County. We are the largest metropolitan area in the county. So hopefully someday, and this is what I alluded to earlier about your future, you will consider being a part of West Palm Beach and pursuing your career in our city. And believe me, I'm doing everything I can to build a city where companies want to set up shop, want to establish headquarters, and hire local talent. So if I do my job right, by the time you finish doing your job here in this college, there will be jobs waiting for you. We're seeing so much progress and change, and you are the hope for our city's future. The other thing I'm working to do each and every day is to make West Palm Beach a community of opportunity for all. A community of opportunity for all, whereby anyone, no matter their race or ethnicity, age, gender, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status, can realize their dreams in our city. I'm working not only for the residents of today, but also for the next generation of residents. Let me share a few statistics with you about the results of some of the work. We saw a 9% year-over-year decrease in the overall crime rate in the last 2 years. The homicide rate fell 30%. To me, this is extremely important because no matter in which zip code you may live in our city, you deserve to live in a safe, secure neighborhood. Despite COVID-19, our city's economy remains strong. In fact, there are currently over $700 million in projects under construction in our city. Let me repeat that, $700 million of projects under construction. And if you haven't read today's Palm Beach Post, I encourage you to pick up a copy because on the very first page is a story about a developer that is not only doubling down on its investment in our city, but is looking to triple and quadruple down the related group. Take a look at the article. It'll give you some idea of what our city is up to and what developers are up to and why they are attracted to our city and why I believe there will certainly be a job for each and every student here in this university by the time they graduate in 4 years. But in the first quarter of its fiscal year, our city had the highest collection of business tax revenue of any quarter in its history. It's $3.3 million, and that is again in a year of a major pandemic. The city itself completed 42 infrastructure improvement projects totaling $45 million in fiscal year 20. We started or completed 277 workforce housing units in the last year to do our part to help ensure that every family or person has a roof over their head. And we are continuing to help our homeless neighbors. We are serving homeless individuals through a street engagement team by providing access to mental health services, offering placement in emergency housing. So earlier I did mention this community of opportunity for all that I am very excited about building in West Palm Beach. And let me highlight for you a couple of initiatives that we are undertaking to provide more unity in our community. You know, to have unity, you have to have an understanding of your fellow man. And by understanding each other, we can not only begin to understand the challenges faced by each other, but we can also begin to address the challenges we face as a community. When you address the challenges faced by a particular part of the community, you're able to not only bring about fairness and equity, but also you can improve quality of life for everyone, whether socially or economically, you can impact them in so many ways. I'm sure you've heard the statement, which is attributed to the late President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, a rising tide lifts all boats. A community's values, the ideals they hold near and dear, such as equity, equality, and fairness, are critical to bringing about this change. So last summer, the West Palm Beach community spoke loud and clear about the need for change in areas of social justice and equality. West Palm Beach was not alone. Those cries rang out throughout this nation and indeed throughout the world. I knew something was different when I picked up the paper one day and read that NASCAR had banned the Confederate flag. And I picked up the paper another day and heard that the famous show, The Bachelor, had picked an African American to be its lead. Something was in the air, and I'm sure you all heard about it, you experienced it, you saw it on the news as well. People were in the streets marching for a better America. In West Palm Beach alone, we facilitated the demonstrations of about 4,000 people. The senseless killings of black men and women, coupled with the challenges presented by COVID-19, which we know disproportionately adversely impacted people of color, whether through inability to access testing or through job loss, made it clear to everyone that enough was enough. It was no longer enough to just talk about change, but that rather it was time to make that change a reality for everyone. And in West Palm Beach, the data supported the call for change. Based upon estimates from 2019, the city had a slightly lower median household income of $54,334. That was lower than the metropolitan area, which included the region from Miami all the way up to Palm Beach, as well as the national averages. That median household income of only $54,334 was lower than the region and the nation. At 16.6%, the city has a higher poverty rate than our region, as well as the nation. West Palm Beach contains a mix of white, black, Hispanic, or Latino residents, but there is such a low rate of home ownership, only 48.8%, again, which is lower than the Miami metro region and the United States as a whole. Since 2000, blacks in West Palm Beach are 5 times more likely to be killed by police than whites and Hispanics. In West Palm Beach from 2009 to 2019, 2 out of every 3 homicide victims were black males. And only 30% of those cases were ever solved. And then finally, blacks are in prison 6 times more often than whites, and twice as often as Hispanics, from data collected in 2017. So in light of the energy in the streets, the calls for change, and certainly the statistics that were on my desk, I established the Mayor's Task Force for Racial and Ethnic Equality to take a good hard look at our city, to identify the inequalities that exist in our city, to understand the historical events that led to such inequalities, and to make policy recommendations to me and also to the Commission to effect lasting, real, transformative change. Now, this task force is made up of a diverse group of community members. It's been co-chaired by a local attorney as well as by the gentleman who heads up the local urban league. And it will focus on these key policy areas: criminal justice, health, real estate and housing, finance, banking, and industry, and education, including workforce development. Now, here's where you could come in. So, last December, we had our first action summit, conducted virtually through Zoom. We had over 300 people who participated in that summit. That number is significant because it was a very sunny, beautiful, sunny Saturday afternoon. The summit itself lasted 4 hours. but over 300 people took time out of their day to voice their opinion on how our city can be more fair and just. We're having another one in June of this year, and we're expecting over 1,000 people to participate. You know, COVID was tough. It was tough on all of us. But one thing it did do was it introduced us to this technology called Zoom. So folks could sit in the comfort of their home and participate in the Action Summit. They didn't have to worry about getting a babysitter or getting in the car and driving to the convention center or anything like that. It was a very convenient way for them to be part of the conversation of how West Palm Beach could be a more equitable city. We'd love to have you participate. Go to WPB-EqualityTaskForce.org. That's WPB-EqualityTaskForce.org to find out how you can join us in the Action Summit upcoming in June. It gives people a chance to have their voice heard on the issues that are crying out for attention. So we're doing what we can in West Palm Beach to make progress, affect change, and inspire hope for the future. Now, I told you I'd give you 2 initiatives. I know my time is running short. The other key initiative was the inaugural Unum Fellows Program. Mitch Landrieu, who was a former mayor of New Orleans, formed a foundation by the name of E Pluribus Unum. And I'm sure you all know, being college students, that means from many, all. From many, one. And I was named as a Unum Fellow, just one of 14 elected officials from around the nation. And we're embarking on a year-long journey to learn how to come up with ideas and programs to address inequitable and discriminatory policies and practices within our communities. The Unum program recognizes that addressing issues of racial and ethnic equality starts at the local level. It starts with our cities. So the access to these resources, experts, and tools will greatly help to support our city and the work of the task force. After leaving the program, we aim to be better equipped to foster meaningful participation among key community partners and leaders, to advance initiatives that address racial and economic disparities in communities, and to cultivate long-term visions for equity within our communities. So by giving us, the city, access to these additional resources, we hope to be able to move for and make lasting change. So I think that as mayor, I set the tone for our community's discussion on racial and economic equity. We have the ability to change inequitable and discriminatory policies and practices. By the way, I did set up a task force also to look at the city's internal policies. I thought it was important that as we are looking at the city outward into the city, that it's important as an organization that we look inward and make sure that we were being the most equitable and just and fair organization that we could be. And we have gotten a number of very fine recommendations that we are implementing as internally at the city. But let me return to the topic I discussed at the beginning of this speech as I close. And that question is Black History Month really needed in these days and times? It almost has gotten a little bit trite. You know, we recognize February 1st, February 28th, February 29th, if it's a leap year. We hear the stories, we hear the speeches. But I never want us to underestimate the power. So the answer is yes, Black History Month is needed as much today as it was back in 1926 when Dr. Woodson first came up with the vision of Negro History Week. It's needed because it is so important to promote transformation and change in our society. It is as important today as it was then. While the chains of slavery are gone, we are all not yet free. And I know you remember the events of this summer, the injustices that were characterized by the untimely deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, show that we still have a long way to go. But in the words of that old Negro spiritual, we can't be no ways tired. We have come too far from where we started from. A true understanding of Black history and the struggles of our ancestors should motivate us to continue in struggle and fight against injustice and fairness. And this isn't just a Black thing. I believe if you truly look at the history of Black Americans, whether you do the looking or white, brown, yellow, you can find nuggets in there that will inspire you to reach higher, to run faster, to be better as a person. So, Black history is American history. It's the story of a people who were brought over here in change to achieve the pinnacles of power, whether it's locally or international, or nationally or even internationally. We need to always remember that though the slaves were bought, they were also brave. Though they were sold, they were also strong. So as each and every one of you work to pursue your personal dreams, you must continue to draw inspiration and guidance from the past. I promise you that through that inspiration, you will find the tools and paths that will help you lead more productive lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor James. That was truly inspiring, and it was really an honor to have you here today. I'm very excited about some of the things you talked about that are going on in our city, and I'm sure other people are as well. All right, does anyone have any questions for the good mayor? Yes, good. Hold on. Dr. Jennifer Peluso, our academic dean.
Okay, I get a question from an academic dean.
Yes.
Boy, I hope I can answer it.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your message of Black History Month being a mindset that we carry into the future. But to that end, I wonder if you had a wish list for the colleges and universities within the West Palm Beach area, what would it be that we could do, your wish list, to help you with the vision you just cast today?
Thank you for that question, and it is a very good question because I truly believe that institutions such as Keiser and other educational institutions in our city are tremendous allies and assets. As companies are looking to relocate or to set up shop in West Palm Beach, one of the questions that I hear most often from CEOs and COOs is there a pipeline for workers? So what I would ask you to do, my wish list, is that you all continue to produce the finest students that you can, and that maybe you even start peering into your crystal ball to see what are some of the industries of the future that you could start preparing students for today. Because that will now help me as I do my job of trying to recruit companies here. I can give them the assurance that yes, over there at Keiser University, they are producing a workforce that you could tap into when you bring your company down here. We are confident of that. So again, the wish list is continue, and I know you've been doing that, so continue doing what you're doing, but also help us by trying to identify those industries and technologies and disciplines of tomorrow, and prepare your students today for those disciplines of tomorrow. Thank you for that question. There's one in the back there.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. I have, you mentioned that Black History Month was still a very important thing that should be talked about. And throughout the summer, we, I guess, like, our generation kind of was talking about how Black history being taught in schools is not really being taught at schools. And I guess like what kind of plans like to implement, what exactly is systemic and like racial injustice and how it has actually like impacted us, so that way it's shown like within Black History Month, I guess, and like what we can do as as a school or like other high schools and colleges to show like kind of like show that.
Okay, I think I heard two questions there. I'm going to answer the questions I heard, but hopefully it will be the ones you asked. In terms of how Black history is taught these days and whether it is sufficient, I would contend that if you just stick to the script in our elementary, middle schools, and high schools, it probably is grossly insufficient. But the one beautiful thing about your generation is you know how to turn on what they call the Google machine. There's so much information out there now. Of course, you have to be careful and make sure you go to trusted, reliable sources, but there's so much information that you could pull out on your own to learn about individuals, about communities, folks who have fought the good fight to bring the African American community from where it was in 1700s to where it is today. So a lot of responsibility is your own self-education. Don't rely upon the teachers in front of the classroom to always be the only ones giving you information about what happened in the Black community. But the second thing that I heard you say is this thing called systemic racism. There are systems, there are institutions that have been established that have over the years been designed to tamp down or to limit the achievements of African Americans in this country. And I think we have to be very honest about that. And so that's one of the reasons why I established a task force. Because I knew the task force would have to meet over time. And given the nature of systemic racism, I think we have to be very honest, it does exist. Given the nature of it, you're not going to get rid of it with just a conversation or two. It's not going to happen with a virtual, town hall or just a single conversation. It requires rolling up your shirt sleeves and really getting into the nitty-gritty as to where we were before, and even in West Palm Beach. And I made it very clear to the task force. I want them to look at our history as a city, the good, the bad, and I know there's a lot of ugly because we're still in the South, right? And if you know anything about American history, the South is where a lot of the bad happened in terms of racial relations. But we can't stop there. We have to be honest and do that self-assessment, but we can't stop there. We need to look around, acknowledge who we have been, but also carve a path forward for where we want to be and where we need to be. But history, if you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going. And so it's so important to be honest about your history. So that's the job that we that are in power have to do, is to do an honest self-assessment. But for just learning Black history, every boy and girl, every man and woman can do their own learning in that respect. So hopefully that answers your question, but that's a point that I certainly want to make. A couple of points I want to make. Question there.
Thank you, Mayor. And just actually to piggyback on her question, during your 300-person summit, were there any common themes that emerged, and did you have any light bulb moments of what we can do as a community to continue to work better, to work together towards, the best version that America can be?
And that's a very good question, and I should have mentioned that summit was a first step, right? I mean, we wanted to obviously try to capture where people were, to get a level set, where people's thinking were in these various areas. And so the process that we're going to go through is the task force has been meeting periodically. There were some themes that evolved from that, and you could go to that same website and get some of that information. And so there are various subcommittees that were developed to really wrestle with some of those themes, whether it's in education, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in finance. And then we'll do a follow-up, as I mentioned, in June, to hopefully capture even more. And quite frankly, one of the things I was most disappointed in is we didn't have enough young people that were involved in the summit. And that's the future of our city. It's the future of our world, and that's where a lot of that energy was demonstrated over this past summer. So we're doing everything we can to get the word out to the young people, using whatever platform, Snapchat, TikTok, I don't know all this stuff, but you all do, about where, to get the word out, that we are having this opportunity. And so, but the process will continue after that summit. Then the task force, the subcommittees of the task force will start putting together specific recommendations that will then go up to the task force itself. And the task force will have the discussion, deliberation, and conversations, and they will, finesse it, massage it, debate it, and come up with a list of specific policy proposals. Because I was very clear to the task force, I want you to bring to the commission and myself as mayor specifics, not just general pie in the sky kind of ideas, but some specific things that we can do as a city, either this year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, so that we can show that we are listening to the people and affecting change. But if you want to find out what the thinking is even now, you could go to that website, I lost my notes, but hopefully you took it down. And they are publishing some of the priorities that came out of that. They have published the priorities that came out of that December Action Summit. And so that people can know going into the June Action Summit what some of the ideas have been. Any other questions?
I'd just like to ask you.
A quick question.
Sure.
Being prepared for a job is one thing, and then doing a job is another, as we all know. I don't care what the job is. And you're certainly like as well a prepared individual as anyone to be mayor, but like everyone in a new job, I'd like you to maybe identify one area that, just kind of, I don't want to say caught you off guard, but you never realized the enormity or the complexity of something, and how has that helped you mature in dealing with whatever that is? How has that helped you mature as a leader?
Well, that's a very good question, and let me give you a little side story before I answer that question. My political mentor is Congresswoman Lois Franco, who used to be mayor of West Palm Beach, and she actually is the one who even talked to me about running for a city commission years ago. So after I got elected, and before I was sworn in, she pulled me to the side election night and said, listen, I just want you to understand that each and every day on this job is going to be different. She could not have been more honest. Now, in terms of surprises, let's start with a 100-year pandemic. I mean, that wasn't really on my list of things that we had to deal with. And that's obviously a big one. But there are other things, such as last Friday morning at 5:30 in the morning, I get a call from my utilities director who told me that we had a major water main break in our city, and that we were going to have to issue a citywide boil water order. Now, when I woke up, I didn't expect to have to deal with that. That lasted the whole weekend, as good enough. So I guess you just, as Congresswoman Franco said, you just have to learn how to be flexible in this job, because you never know what's going to hit you. But I think the most important thing is to surround yourself with good people. I can't do everything, and I tell my staff all the time, I can't get in the weeds with you. You are the subject matter experts, whether it's the engineering department, the utilities department. So you have to do your job. But the one promise I extract from them is that they will come to me with information that I need to hear and not what they think I want to hear. Because I can only make decisions, good sound decisions, based upon the quality of information that I'm given. And so you have to let your staff feel comfortable enough bringing you bad news or news that you may not want to hear as mayor. So because once I have the information, then we try to make the best decision. But if it's filtered through some kind of filter saying, oh, we don't want to talk mayor this and put it with a bad, no, don't do that. Tell me everything that I need to know. Because again, it is not about satisfying the mayor. It's helping the mayor to meet the needs of the 110,000 residents and all the businesses that call West Palm Beach their home.
Mayor, I wanted to say thanks. We're actually super proud to be part of West Palm Beach. We all come from all over the world sometimes, and we come here to West Palm Beach, and we're proud of that. And we're super proud of the fact that you've taken the leadership role that you have, and really, not only from a transformational standpoint, but you take ownership of the things that need to be done. You really have, and we appreciate that. And I knew Lois and G, and all of the rest, and I've seen it. I've never seen somebody who's taken charge so early, so quickly. And seriously, you have, and we very, very much appreciate that. And we're here for any sort of institutional things that you might need. So if over the summer you need an organization or put something together organizationally within the campus that says, let's get 400 kids on campus to talk about how to change the world, we're happy to do that. We are West Palm Beach here. We're proud to be that school, and we thank you for all the things that you do to make it that kind of place for us.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate that.